What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the WebBuzz Podcast, where we're talking all things real about marketing. We are finally back. Today, we are talking about developing a content marketing strategy for your real estate business. And I cannot be more excited to have the man, the myth, the legend, the Google Nader himself back, ready to do another set of WebBuzz podcasts. Roger, how you feeling?
Feeling good, man. It's been a while, so it's a little. It feels like we're starting new. So
It
I'm
kinda
even a
does.
little nervous. I don't know why, but we'll get the cobwebs out of this first one, and then we're starting with a really hot topic. So I'm excited for it. But yeah, ready to go.
Well, maybe we just answered why your stomach was making all kind of noise backstage before we went live. It's a little nervousness, but with that being said, folks, let's dive in to today's show. And I bet you forgot about that awesome intro, didn't you?
Oh man, got to start out with some fire, man. So it's good. Get me going.
Anyway, it does feel good to be back. Folks, this has been something that Roger and I have been kicking the bucket around for, I don't know, 6-7 months. We keep saying, man, we got to get the WebBuzz back. We got to get WebBuzz back. We got to get back committed to WebBuzz. And it finally took one of us just saying, you know what, screw it, put it on the calendar, and let's kind of hold ourselves to the fire. And then I will say this much: it actually was, our a team member of ours that came up with an idea that sparked a few things. It was like, wait a minute, we really need to do this because, and it kind of ties into today's topic a little bit, right? But we need this as kind of the kind of the piece of the puzzle that brings it all together with a lot of different tactics. So before we go too deep into all the stuff, folks, we got about 4 different key points when it comes to developing a content marketing strategy for your real estate business and for you as real estate experts out there that we're going to go into. But Roger, is there anything you want to kind of share or talk about before we get into the main points here?
No, I think the only thing that I would kind of point out is just as we go through these topics. I mean, this is kind of set up in a way where every brand, if you're trying to kind of put a digital footprint out there, get your brand out there, generate more leads. I mean, what we're going to go through today is basically this foundation. So definitely pay attention and take it in order because that's how we kind of set this up for today. If you're taking notes, you rewatch this. Like I said, just take it in order, take it one step at a time, and don't overwhelm yourself. Don't try to cover every topic. Shawn and I will give a lot of different examples, but what you want to do is just take that first step, right? So don't overwhelm yourself. Just take it one step at a time.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more there. And as we go through this, folks, I'm going to encourage you guys to really pay attention to each one of these 4 major topics because they're, as Roger kind of alluded to there, they're almost like a framework that you can follow. And that is something as we continue moving forward with the WebBuzz podcast that Roger and I have really been focused on. And what we kind of created this thing for out of the get-go to begin with was more to give you guys step-by-steps, frameworks, these type of things that you can kind of follow suit with, build off of, and work on to ultimately help your real estate business grow. So the first thing that we have on the list here, first kind of main point, and I love how you said that, Roger, they go in order because they're kind of like a building block, right? You
Exactly.
can't go to number 3 without getting number 1 and 2 done. If you do, it's just going to be awkward, and things aren't going to want to fit right, or you're going to be a little confused on it. And the first step in this whole process of developing your content marketing strategy is how do you let's talk from it this way. How do they do what I'm about to say? Okay. And the
Mhm.
first step is identifying the target audience. So let's talk about how do we identify it? Because I hear that a lot from clients we work with, non-clients, different events that we're at. It's like, how do I know who I'm supposed to be doing this business for? How do I know who's the right person or right type of avatar to go after?
Yeah. So the first thing you have to kind of really identify is what business you're in, right? So that's one of the things that kind of throws people off. It's like, wait a minute, I'm in a real estate, right? Whether you're a real estate investor, a real estate agent. Now, let's just kind of stick to the topic here with real estate investors, right? We talk a lot about real estate investors. We work with a lot of real estate investors. Like, how do you go about developing that first identifying the target audience? Well, you got to, I know I talk a lot to a lot of real estate investor when I ask that question, and I get a little more direct. It's like, all right, now you're a real estate investor. Who do you help? Where's your expertise, right? Where's your experience? So there's like, well, I can help, anybody that's trying to sell a home. Yes, we understand that, but with time, you can build that authority, right? Where you can build all that authority and content around there. But you have to, again, going back to what I said when first started, you got to take that first step. Where do you see yourself, or where do you have the experience? Do you have the experience in foreclosure? Do you help people that are going through the foreclosure process? Maybe bankruptcy, maybe they're going through a divorce and have a home that they need to offload, right? And you have a certain system. So that's when you start really identifying, number one, what is your overall category of your business, right? In this case, real estate investing. I'm looking for motivated sellers. Your next step is to really ask yourself, within that category, who am I trying to help? Where can I start? Right? Because that's where we're going. I know you can help everybody, but we're trying to build that developing the content marketing strategy. And to do that, you need to identify the meta, right? Who is that subcategory of the bigger category? So category would be real estate investing. Next category would be something like foreclosure, bankruptcy, divorce, tired landlord, things like that.
Yeah, and I think where a lot of investors kind of go wrong, or they get analysis paralysis, is what I'm going to call it, right? Is, well, Roger, Shawn, you guys are saying, like, I get it. I'm a real estate person. I can help anybody, right? I buy houses. I give them cash for their home. These type of things. And you want me to pick an avatar. You want me to identify who this target audience is, and I don't want to bottleneck myself into just probate or just pre-foreclosure or just bankruptcy. And that's where I think the analysis paralysis kicks in. Target audience doesn't necessarily need to be a singular situation. It can be. We've got clients that that's what they do. They've hyper focused into a very specific, situation in real estate. Probate, for example, senior transition, right? It might be foreclosure, it might be military, whatever the case is. That's one way of identifying the target audience, or kind of saying, hey, this is an audience that I want to create content for. And that's, I think, the key that you need to look at it from. It's not necessarily you're bottlenecking yourself, like that is the only people that you can do business with. It's just, if I'm going to create content, I need to make sure the content is created to help the right audience. So who is the audience of this type of content, right? Of this piece of content that I'm going to be producing. And that could be, audience could equal what I used to call the buy box in real estate, right? For us in the mid 2000, teens, 12, 13, 14, 15 era, we were buying very specific based on style of home. Slab house built after 1955, 2 to 3 bedrooms, 1 to 1.5 to 2 bathrooms, 1,000 to 1,500 square foot in B plus neighborhoods. We had a list of zip codes. That's an audience, because there's a very specific type of person that lives in there. If I wanted to produce content around that, I'm not going to produce content around, walkout basements, for example. They live in a slab house. They're not going to have that, right? It wouldn't resonate. So I think that's the other kind of side of this is, it's not pigeonholing you into this is the only type of business that you can do, or the only type of sellers that you're going to be able to help. B, you got to ask that question, like, I'm developing content. What type of content needs to hit that target audience so that it aligns and then it makes sense? And I guess kind of elaborate on that, because Google's kind of the same way, right? When we look the SEO side, Google's looking at, like, who is the avatar of this content, because I can't just rank it based on the mere fact of content. I got to base it on who would actually get value out of this.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're kind of heading in that direction, because it's a lot deeper than us just kind of naming these couple categories. Again, we're trying to keep it very low level to kind of, so you can grasp it one step at a time. Because Shawn, you hit on a different step. I hit on the overall category of, all right, motivated seller, and then I talked about, all right, how do you break that down a little bit more? subcategories would be, your foreclosures. And then you started talking about slab homes in certain areas. Well, guys, I'm going to give you a couple other steps would be even the location. That is a category. What area of what part of the country, what city within a certain state are you trying to target? All these are questions that you have to answer because these are all subcategories of your content marketing strategy. So these are where you're going to get your ideas. These are the type of pieces of content you're going to create, and where all your ideas for whether it's video or written content, whatever it might be, are going to come from. Now, I'll kind of before we kind of get any deeper, I do want to kind of mention why are we even worried about creating all this content, and what's the benefit of it from a digital footprint standpoint, right? So there's something that Google's kind of rolled out in the last couple of years, and they keep evolving it, adding to it as part of the algorithm, and they call it the EEAT, right? So we'll get more in detail in other podcasts, but for this one, I just need you guys to know that that is part of the algorithm, and it basically stands for your experience, expertise, authority, and trust, right? Of you, the brand, or your actual company brand. So that is the whole reason why we're spending all this time and talking about content marketing, because if we nail that down the right way, the way Google wants us to basically nail down a certain category or topic, then you have a better opportunity to rank. And if we don't do it, if we're too broad, essentially we're real estate investors, and if you have a house you want to sell, we're here to help. You're not going to compete. But if you nail down all these subcategories, then you build the topical relevance that Google's looking for, which nails down your experience, your expertise. You start building your authority because you have all that content. And then at the end of the day, the conversions come from trust. So if you nail that whole part down, then we hit the nail on the head. That's why we're kind of talking about this topic today.
I think that deserves something, man. Some good old gold bars right there. So building on that, right? Because I think that makes complete sense. And hopefully you guys listening or watching this, it kind of starts to bring some clarity, like avatar, audience, prospect, target, all these words that we're saying don't have to be a singular person, just like we just talked about there. And we kind of build on that. Now, the second piece of this, right, when we get into step 2, we're starting to talk a little bit more about actually building the credibility and what we say leadership through educational and informative content. And this is big. I know you're going to be able to talk quite a bit from the Google side of things, especially with helpful content and all that kind of stuff, right? But I want to talk first on credibility and leadership through educational and informative content. Really comes down to you being known. That's the key word, known as the expert in your marketplace around whatever it is that you're talking about. Simple as that, right? And the only way that happens is actually by producing. And we're going to talk step number 3, one way of kind of building credibility and leadership, so to say, in this. But the big part that I want everybody to take away from step 2, before you go and elaborate on this, on how impactful this is on the digital scene, is until you start to build credibility and leadership, and you do it through information, not trying to push sale. I'll give you cash. I'll give you cash. I'll give you cash. I'll buy your house today. I'll buy your house today. That kind of stuff. Until you start doing that, it's really hard to become known as the expert. You might be, you can go the other route and you might be discovered as the quick option, but does that always mean that you're the expert or the best option on it? So kind of take that and run with it now a little bit. This one, I think, plays more into the digital aspect, the rankability, what's going on in the, the Google world right now with helpful content and that kind of stuff. So I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So this kind of, like you said, Shawn, it's a great kind of segue into SEO and how that kind of helps your rankings, what Google's looking for. And it always goes back to that algorithm. I know there's hundreds of them. So those of you that are a little more tech savvy, you understand that Google changes the way their search kind of algorithm that they have changes every day. But the major ones are the ones we hear about. I keep going back to the EEAT algorithm, because that's the one that affects what we're doing for local SEO. You guys are local investors, right? You help local people trying to, that are motivated sellers trying to offload a property. Now, let's talk about how you build that leadership through education, how that falls into SEO. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a formula. So hopefully I can kind of explain that, and in your head, you can picture what I mean by that. So number one, the way we build our sites, if you were to go and look for a popular keyword in your city, that's something like, cash buyers in San Diego, California, right? You're a motivated seller, whatever your situation is, you're just trying to find somebody. In most cases, you'll find, if you do that search, you'll find a page on someone's website talking about them giving you money, right? You're probably going to read through that and you're like, all right, but then you're going to click through a couple more, maybe 2 or 3 more, and they're all going to say similar things, basically the same thing, right? They're going to say the same thing. Where it becomes different or important for you guys to build that leadership and education through information, basically informational content, is that person now has options. Now they looked up that keyword and they found multiple people, and in most cases, in some cases, the content is very similar, and maybe it is high quality or low quality depending on what market you're in, right? It's good. But what that person's going to do is like, well, I want the best, right? I want to make sure that I got someone that I can trust, that I can relate to, right? That knows what they're doing. Well, what are they going to do? They're probably going to do a couple more searches. And if you did your homework, if you did your work, right? If you put in the work, you probably have content on YouTube. You probably have blogs on your website supporting your process, right? You even probably have a process page of how it works page. Multiple blogs talking about, not only do we just can give you a house, but what is your situation, right? Are you going through foreclosure? Let me give you a couple pieces of content, couple blog posts, right, that are talking about that. I know the process of the foreclosure process in San Diego. Not only that, but I know how to help you, right? I know how to get you out of that situation. So compare that to my competitor's website that, yes, they did a good job on content and they were able to rank well, right? But when, that motivated seller goes and reads that person's website, the content, and they don't find anything else, all it is that one sales page. Then to Shawn's point, it's like that car salesman, right? That's like, he's going to give you every detail he can to try to sell you on the spot. The other scenario that Shawn likes to use is the dating. It's like going out
I
with
don't
someone
like
and
to
asking
just
them to
use it.
marry
I
you
wrote
right
the
out of the
thing.
gate, right?
Work on it, man. Come on.
Right. Well, and scenario number one, the one that has all the content, that's you're building that relationship, and that's what people want. They want to first get to know you, right? What do you know? Let me build that. Show me that that you're an authority, and then you'll win over my trust, and then I will give you my business. So that's what that whole process and why we build. I call them content silos when we build them on websites. So we build the location page, that sales page, right? But along with that, we make sure that we're building content around that to build the topical relevance, that we know what we're talking about when that motivated seller comes to us. And 2, we're building the education, right? We're educating the user. And that's what then turns into trust and conversions.
Yeah. You started saying something there, and immediately Chris Sal with Ohana Legacy Properties, one of our long-standing clients, really good friends of ours down in the Houston market. Something Sal says almost anytime he gets on a call, training, he's been at any of the live events, anything that we've put on, he constantly is saying this, that his lead flow, although if you just looked at numbers, they were just here for a big thing that we were doing with Investor Harvest. We were showcasing, sharing numbers, sharing some of the KPIs. And he's like, guys, if you look at our numbers look low in comparison to some other companies out there as far as how many leads we're working with. But the big difference is when a lead comes to us, it's already basically a deal, because they are so well positioned in understanding how we help them, how this is going to work. It's a perfect marriage almost, where the meetings or the calls, we'll put it, are almost like a formality just to make sure that any final questions are answered, and they're already, kind of moving into analyzing the deal, making an offer, coming up with different solutions and that kind of stuff. He's like, the days of us dealing with the, hey, what do you do? Hey, how are you going to help me? Hey, just give me a dollar amount, because those tend to come from lack of trust, lack of credibility. If I was the seller and I'm that person calling like that, it's probably because I'm questioning, are you even legit? Right?
Right.
Is this even a safe thing for me to do? So it comes from a more defensive standpoint. So when I hear build credibility and leadership, I immediately go to pre-position yourself as that go-to and pre-position the person you're working with, in this case, the seller on the other end, to feel really comfortable by the time they're ready to actually have a conversation with you.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent point that you put there, because you sometimes it gets overwhelming when you're new to the industry and you're really trying to kind of understand what you're supposed to do, but in reality, it's right in front of you, because you got to put yourself back into the consumer seat,
Mhm.
right? And when you put yourself in the consumer seat, look at when you look for a digital agency for your for your real estate investor business. Look at us. We are a very specific agency that helps real estate investors and real estate professionals. We are all over this particular niche. So when someone comes to us, we can speak to it. We have content out there all over the place talking how we help these real estate experts in their digital marketing. So take that one step further. If that's still kind of a little hazy on how that works, think about when you go purchase a certain car. Are you going, if you're looking for a very specific car, you probably want to go to a dealership that sells that type of car, that has salespeople that are experts on that car, not something else. Something, if you're looking for a general or a deal, then you'll go to a generalist. But if you're looking
Right.
for high quality service or product, then you want a specialist. And that's what you get. That's what we're trying to push here. We're trying to kind of push you guys to become specialists in a certain portion of real estate investing.
And that kind of leads into step 3 of this whole process here, right? The power of user generated content. And if I ended it right there, that we can elaborate like crazy, but it enhances the authenticity and engagement. And I know before we were, going live here today, you and I were backstage and we kind of were talking about user generated content. What is that? What does it look like? And for those listening and watching to this right here, what Roger and I are doing is a great example of user generated content that goes back to step number 2, that builds credibility and thought leadership. Because here we are doing something, producing some form of content, right? That's what it means to be user generated. We are the user, we are the person in this, and we're generating this, but we're doing it from a manner of teaching, educating, putting out knowledge, right? Which builds the credibility and leadership aspect. So, talk a little bit about this. I've got some ideas too, some easy things that you guys can be doing, that once you've nailed down step 1, you know who it is that you're talking to, and you know kind of what type of educational and informative type of content you should be putting out there. I've got some really easy ways for you to generate user-based content to get out there. So what are some of your thoughts first, Roger?
Yeah, so there's this. This is the one that's another one that could be kind of like a paralysis for some people, because it can be overwhelming. There's so many options. There's hundreds. Number one, there's hundreds of topics you can write about, and there's so many topics that sometimes you just get so overwhelmed that you don't even know
Mhm.
where to start. Right. So that's number one. You got to be careful. That's why you have to kind of go to the specialist mentality and start somewhere. Not that you're always going to create content around that one specialty, but you have to start somewhere, right? Number two is the type of content that you're produce. So once you start producing this content, can be into a couple different formats, but let's look at two different categories of types of content, which would be written content and video content, right? Let's stay there again, trying to kind of keep it not overwhelming. So those two are great, because when you do written content, which is where most people are more comfortable if they're going to do one or the other, they do the written version, and they come in the form of a blog, right? Or a service page or a location page, something that's going to live on your website, essentially. If you can take it that far, what a lot of people don't understand is that you can convert that one piece of content. Say you create one blog post, and let's use a topic. You created a one blog post about the foreclosure process in San Diego, California. And then at the end, the call to action is, if you're going through this process, you need help, you can call us, because we actually buy houses for cash, right? You kind of put that in there. But that one piece of content can now be converted into a video, right? You can literally create a video that can be converted into a video script that can then be uploaded to something like YouTube, to your YouTube channel, right? So that's another way. The other thing that you can do is take that one piece of content and now you summarize what you just said in that blog post, and you can actually create what's called a Google Business Profile post. So if you guys don't know what a Google Business Profile is, don't worry about it. We'll get into it another podcast, but that's another. It's a Google basically a profile that you can create for your business. That's very powerful for local businesses, and they allow you to do miniature or mini blog posts. And what I like to do is take those big long blog posts from our website and summarize those and then post them on the Google Business Profile. So that's another way to do it. And then obviously all this content, whatever you're creating, again, we're only talking about one, but now you placed it and created different piece types. You can then syndicate that or share that on your social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, just to name a few, are places that one piece of content can then get pushed over that way. Now you can see how it's very easy to spread basically your digital footprint very fast with just one piece of content.
Yeah, and you take that, and it's funny because you said, most people are going to gravitate towards the writing side, right? If we had to say write or video, I laugh because you're 100% correct. The majority of the clients that we work with, we tell them do video, do blogs, produce content. You've got these two main ways, and they all go to, I don't want to be on camera. Let me do this. Meanwhile, I'm the opposite. I'd be the one, Lone Ranger over here that's like, don't ask me to write anything. I'm a 2-time published author and don't even ask me to write, right? Because video is a lot easier. So I want to take everything that Roger just said and 100%, right? Blogs are needed, GBP posts are needed, social content is needed. This is user generated content if it's done from the right area and answering questions. That's always the thing that I keep pushing on. It's like, just answer the common questions that you're going back to the avatar, the target audience is going to ask. They're going to ask some of these things, just answer it. That's some of the easiest content to produce. But video is a great way of showcasing it, meaning you guys are out looking at properties all the time. You're out walking ugly houses. You're out dealing with, a seller situation. You've got title issues going on. You're dealing with your title company. You're going through closings. You're lining up lending. There's so many things that are happening on a day-to-day basis in a real estate business that I almost cringe anytime I hear somebody say, I don't know what to produce content on. Because there is literally thousands of pieces of content floating in your face almost daily that if you just stopped and thought for a second, turn on the phone, right? Grab the phone, hit the camera, and start recording. Even if it's just you explaining, hey, we were just over at our title company and I'm standing outside the front of my title company. I was just here at my title company today. We were working on some stuff, helping a seller that's been dealing with XYZ situation. This popped up during the title search. Here's why working with a company like us makes it so much better, because that seller didn't have to deal with XYZ. Boom, you're done, right? That's one piece of content. Now, is that going to get syndicated everywhere? Do you need to worry about how do I put a blog to it? And that's, I think, the other analysis paralysis that we hear is, okay, well, Roger said I should do a blog and I should do a GBP post around and all this kind of stuff. Yes, there should be a framework, right? This video, for example, is the tip of the spear of a pretty robust framework that we have built internally around this one topic. But that doesn't mean that every single piece of content that I produce has to have that framework. It's okay to have random ones out there around different stuff because it just showcases it. One thing that, and I would laugh if anybody actually went out and looked this up. I periodically I'll pull this up when I'm teaching. I don't even know if you've seen these, Roger. If you guys go to YouTube and type in "flipping in the valley," you're going to stumble on some old Flipping in the Valley YouTube videos that I did with an old business partner of mine when we had house to home properties in Youngstown, Ohio. They are the most janky, ghetto, Band-Aid put together versions of HGTV. It's us trying to, be the HGTV stars, but we're literally shooting these things with an iPad and making my contracting crew, my construction guys, like hold pieces of cardboard with our Q signs on it and what our lines should be. And I mean, terrible, terrible, terrible. Right? I look back at these things and I laugh like crazy now when I randomly pull these up. However, at that time, we started to get known in the area because of those videos, and we only produced a couple of them. Right? The idea was to produce a ton of them, and then they were way too much work because we didn't know what the heck we were doing and didn't have the right gear. But we started to get known for this. People would suddenly run into us and be like, "I think I saw one of your flipping something shows. Like, are you guys actually on TV with that thing?" That's how powerful video content. And that was back in 2013, 2014, 2015. I mean, if I had this technology that we have today, how easy it is to produce video content, if I had that back then and I knew what I know now, holy crap. Right? And I think it's the sleeping gem that a lot of real estate investors, real estate experts out there overlook. They get too wrapped up in everything you're saying, which is powerful, Roger. Don't I'm not discrediting any of that. They get too stuck in the analysis paralysis of, but I got to have a blog and it has to link a certain way and all the formalities, which is why I always say hire a professional that knows how to do that stuff so that we can focus on that and let you just focus on the fun stuff. But real quick, before we move into the fourth point, anything you want to kind of, elaborate? I saw you writing something down, so I know the hamster was running.
The only thing I want to add, well, actually, there's a couple different points that I think are important on why, again, we're doing this and why a couple of ways not to get the paralysis point. Number one, we're doing all this, like I said, to feed that algorithm, EEAT algorithm, but also it's to when you look up your brand. Say you're doing all this content, you're doing it correctly. You're not worrying about SEO. You're just worried about putting out quality content on questions that people are asking you, creating content around that topics that you feel people need to know that around your topic. So when someone looks up your brand, you're filling what's called the knowledge graph of your brand. So all this stuff starts popping up. Well, Google better understands who you are and what you do, right? So that's kind of a big thing to understand. But giving you kind of three tips or three areas where you can kind of go and get topic ideas if you're struggling still is when you do a search around a keyword in your particular niche. In this case, we'll call it the we buy houses in your city, right? In most cases, you'll get a section that's called people also ask. So those are questions that Google's literally telling you, right? It's telling you, hey, people that search this keyword that you just put in are also searching these additional questions, and they give you a list. And as you open them up, they open more and more and more. Now, not all of them make sense for you, but it's a good idea, a good starting point. So that's one. The other one was the one I mentioned is your frequently asked questions. So you guys are working with people all the time, whether you're buying their homes or not. You're going out there, you're putting yourself out there, you're visiting homes. Well, those people that are trying to sell their homes, the motivated sellers, that probably have questions for you. Well, you should answer those questions through content, whether it's video or written. So that's another way to do it. And then the final tip that I have for you on where to get the ideas are competitor analysis, right? If you do the keyword search on Google, you're going to get results. Well, I recommend that you go check out those guys that are ranking in the top 5, see what they're writing about, see what their content looks like, and then go and don't steal it, right? But you get topic ideas of what Google's looking for and why they're getting rewarded with these top rankings. Okay. So with that, I also don't want you to get so wrapped up on the SEO factors where it's like all I'm doing this is to rank high. That's not the initial couple months or year for most people that don't have a fully understand SEO or don't have an agency on their side doing this for them. What I recommend is just do this, because what that's going to turn into is you meeting someone offline, right? Maybe at an event or just random kind of get together, meet someone that's a good fit. You have somewhere to send them. You are confident enough to send them to your website. You are confident that they will find blog posts and service pages and, how it works pages talking about what you do. And you're not nervous about, are they going to, not like me now because they're going to look at my crappy online presence, in other words. Right. And that's why I highly recommend to not get wrapped up in the SEO portion, but first start with the branding, right? The content that really serves the topic that you're trying to answer.
I agree, and that kind of ties in to the final step here. And this is where I kind of geek out sometimes. Um, Numbers never really made sense, but for some reason, data and analytics when it comes to marketing is kind of like the cheat code, in my opinion. It gives us all of the answers. And I know this is something that you and I talk about quite a bit, that, here at REI Toolbox and what we do, everything is data-based decisions, right? Data-driven decisions, data-driven movements, and utilizing data and analytics to measure the effectiveness of your content marketing. And I want to preface before we go into this for a few minutes, data is great, but over analyzing data or over saturating ourselves with data early on could actually be hurtful. Meaning you actually have to have enough data to draw a conclusion. We can't just look at data today because we did something yesterday and assume that that's the answer, right? It's going to take a little bit of time. You need to have a number of things out there and a number of different data points to base this off of, so that we can make the right decision. But real quick, kind of sum up on step 4 here. What does this mean to you? What do you guys look at on more of the SEO side of the house?
Yeah. So from an analytics standpoint, obviously there's certain platforms that you can use like Google Analytics to kind of measure these things. But to Shawn's point, not to kind of go too deep on those, because at the beginning, even in the first from a brand new campaign, when we start with somebody, it's 3 months. It's when you really start getting enough
Mhm.
data, historical data, that you can analyze and actually make some data driven decisions off of. At the beginning, you have initially, when you work with an agency like us that obviously we specialize in real estate, we already know what the strategy, the beginning, but doesn't mean we know what's going to happen in 3 months. What we know is if we apply this strategy, we know what the data should do, and if it doesn't, we have tweaks already to it, right, that we need to make. So you got to look at the beginning on, all right, now that I'm going after an expertise, I know what I'm doing. You build the content. Then 2-3 months later, you read the data and see if it's actually, are you starting to move the needle with your rankings? Are you getting impressions? Are you getting people to opt into forms? What's happening? And you analyze, essentially you're looking and you're analyzing, hey, I thought people were going to opt into my San Diego, California location page, but instead they're opting into this foreclosure process in San Diego blog post. Well, I should go back to that page and see what else I can add to it. Can I add a video to better explain? Basically,
Mhm.
improve the user experience. So you start optimizing the user experience. So what it means to us in the SEO portion is a couple things. Is data is not the solve all problems. It's a guide, right? Because also there's so many factors with data, meaning if I based everything off of kind of the search volume for a certain keyword, that'd be the wrong way to do it, because a keyword in a certain market could be getting, 500 searches per month, which is great. And another keyword in the same market could be getting 10 searches. Well, I think I can make more money. I got to look at the data, but in most cases, depending on your expertise, I might want to rank you for the 10 searches, right? Because that's your expertise. You might be able to convert those instead of going into the big pool where everybody's playing, that's getting the 500 searches, right? So there's
Yep.
different ways to look at it. Again, to Shawn's point, I'm going way over what you guys should be looking at this point. That's why, again, when you work with an agency that understands your niche, or you understand it and you have an internal team, this is what you guys are looking at, right? But at the beginning, if you're in most cases, most people that we work with that come to us first, it's the first 3 to 5 months. We just have to create the strategy, apply it, and then after that time, we start using the data to make decisions from there.
Yeah. I don't really need to add too much more to that. I mean, you kind of nailed it. The only thing that I would put on there, data. So one of the big things that I like to look at on data, when we're getting enough traffic online, right? I love how you said that, earlier, where it was like, hey, I feel comfortable actually driving people to my website because I'm not embarrassed of it, or I know that it's actually more of a tool now for me. When you get to that point, and you're utilizing your website for its purpose, right? Not just this static thing because somebody told you to have it, but actually using it as a tool, paying attention to where the traffic's actually spending the time. on the website, or what are the common pages that they're consistently going to? And we've seen it time and time again, especially in real estate, when there's this how it works page, when there's this about us page. We know that that's kind of the natural progression, right? Everything that you just talked about throughout this whole episode, rankability, content, thought leadership, all this kind of stuff is what's kind of the magnet, right? Content marketing is all about a magnet, pulling them in. And when they get deeper into that process and they're almost ready to communicate with you, that's when we tend to see them hitting how it works, about us, because they're at that stage. They're asking the question of, okay, if I were to call this company, what's the next logical thing that we're going to do if we've got that information in front of them? So I love paying attention to the analytics from that sense. Is like, what is happening right before they're typically picking up that phone or filling out that form, and where are there opportunities for us to enhance those areas to create a little bit better, like you said, user experience, but also create a little bit better conversion. So that, to Sal's point, right, the story that I told about Sal and Chris with Ohana, by the time they're actually reaching out, it's not to ask a bunch of questions. It's to say, okay, I kind of get a gist of this. I want to clarify a few things, and I'm ready to talk to you guys and have you guys come out, take a look, that kind of thing. So anything you want to end before we or add, I should say, not end, anything you want to add before we wrap up today's episode?
Yeah, the one thing, the topic piece that I want to end with is going to be to run your own analysis of your website, right? So a lot of people miss this part. We talk about all this great information, but then you miss the step to go analyze your own platform, right? One of the things that I've seen or heard people say is like, I know I have a website, but I haven't been to it like in a year, right? They don't know that it's there or if it's working. The other thing is you haven't clicked on all the pages. Maybe you had someone build it and you just didn't click on everything. So the main thing that I want you to do is go find your website, look at it, click around, and what you're looking for is the user experience, your experience, right? Go through it as put yourself in the consumer seat and see how you feel. Would you do business with this, person, with this business, is the website, right? And if the answer is no, then look at the things. Start writing down what you wished it would have done for you, right? And that
Mhm.
has to start to what we call on-page optimization and user experience. Is what do you wish was there? What questions do you wish it would have answered? And then the other thing, for those of you that are a little more advanced, maybe you already have a website, maybe have blog posts, have these city pages. Maybe you have a good platform. You're using something that already has this set up. Well, your next step is to see, are you asking for the sale? Basically, is there a call to actions that are very, very clear? Like, are you asking them to call you? Many times you have great content, great layout, great page kind of optimization, but where you miss is, I'm going to read through it, and at the end I'm like, yes, you're talking to me, this is perfect, but you didn't tell me to call you or to opt into a form, or it wasn't clear, it was hidden, right? So
Yep.
what happens is you just created a client for your competitor, because if I get confused, I'm going to bounce off of your website. I'm probably going to click on the next person, and remember, this content is very similar, so they're probably going to be saying something very similar, but the call to action is going to be very clear. So I'll probably end up doing business with them. So make sure
Yep.
that your call to actions are also very clear. In a physical world, is you're asking for the sale. So go analyze your platforms, go analyze your websites, and write some questions down. And maybe you can comment on our video here and tell us what you found.
100%. And if you guys are looking for some help analyzing that, right, after you've done everything Roger just said, as you see floating across the bottom of the screen, we'll also link that up in the show notes of this episode. Just head over to reitoolbox.com/leads. That's reitoolbox.com/leads. We'll jump on, we'll do a deep dive. We'll see what you got. We'll see what you're thinking. And then it's one of my favorite things to do is get on those calls and kind of do a live analysis in the moment, run a couple tests, look at a few things, and if nothing more, just build you out kind of a game plan, let you know what you need to do from there. With that being said, it's been fun. I'm glad we're back doing this. I look forward to the next set of episodes that we've got planned in the future coming out. But any final words before we sign off?
Just get out there and work on your marketing. Start generating some fresh leads.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys next time. And as always, here's to your success.